This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. Tonight with me on the Late Late Show, I'm just talking to you on my own about why I love teaching and why I'm still doing it after 21 years. Hopefully if you can turn around and call me and talk to me about your experiences as well, that'd be great. So, the Late Late Show tonight.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Teachers Talk Radio. This is Sean Mackay with the Late Late Show. Tonight it's a teacher talking, and it's basically everything that I absolutely love about teaching and why it's kind of made me stick with the profession for the last 21 years. So I'm going to go through a lot tonight. I'm not going to go through my dislikes as well. Some of them are exactly the same as my likes, to be fair. But I'm going to start off the way I normally start off, with one of my favourite books, a book I'd like to see in kind of all libraries. Being literacy-based teacher, that's what I'm going to do, the literacy coordinator of Wigson Academy. So tonight I'm going to talk to start off with a book I read a long time ago called Aragon by Christopher Paolini. Now he has a number of books, and obviously he's not as young as he was when he first wrote. I think he was about 15 when he wrote Aragon, and it's an absolutely wonderful book that takes you through how Aragon becomes a dragon rider, and how he's then going to try and defeat his the villain of the piece. He doesn't defeat him at that point in time, but over the course of the books, obviously he does. It's an absolutely brilliant read. It's one I think should be in absolutely every library, school library, because I think it's such a wonderful story. So let's get back then to the show. Tonight, then, I'm going to talk about the first things I'm going to look at is the things that I love about teaching, the things that's kept me in teaching and getting up every morning and looking forward to work. Because, I mean, to be fair, I haven't a single time. No, I tell a lie. I have when I first started, I did, but since I've been at the place that I'm at now, which was Abington Academy, which has now become Wigson Academy. I've never not looked forward to work, and that's a great thing to have over the course of a 21-year career. It's to still love getting up and going into work, and to still look forward to all of the things that actually keep me going, is a wonderful thing to have. I don't think many people actually have that in their job, and especially after this amount of years. So without further ado, let's get on and start with some of the things that are my absolute loves, the things that keep me in there. Now, obviously, the first thing is going to be obvious to anyone that's a teacher. The one thing that keeps me going all the time is the kids. The students themselves are absolutely amazing. I mean, I've had a number of tutor groups. I've had a number of English classes over the years, and it's been an absolute pleasure teaching 99% of them. And obviously that's going to come to my dislikes as well. But talking to the kids, kind of seeing them every day, seeing them grow, seeing them become young adults, it's been especially a privilege as a tutor to see that. I mean, you don't get to see your tutor group as often as you do the normal teaching groups, but you build such a strong bond with them. I mean, my tutor group that I've had, the two or three tutor groups that I've had over the course of the years, I miss every single one of them have gone, and I miss all of them, their foibles and their banter, and I miss the things that made me laugh with them and that you could have a joke. But I also remember that it's kind of that being that father figure to them. It's kind of, that's the thing I loved. It was building that relationship with them, and so that they could tell you the things that were happening to them and tell you the things that were part of their lives, and you can kind of see them and talk to them about what's happening at home and what's happening at school. And anytime anything went wrong, anytime a teacher was kind of they were annoyed with the teacher, they can come and talk to you and they can rant and rave, and then they go back and they'll be absolutely fine. And to be absolutely fair, I mean, I will openly admit that I have kind of blubbed quite a few times when I've seen my classes disappear over the course of time. I mean, when I first started, obviously, my Benton was a high school, so we only saw them from year 6 to year 9. So they left us in over to a different school, which is one that has joined up with us again now. But obviously, even then, seeing them grow up, I mean, I've been ahead of year as well. So I've seen whole year groups come and built relationship with whole year groups, and just seeing them become really mature, really eager people to kind of grow up and move on. And I hope, that they still remember me and that they still think fondly of me sometimes the way that I do them. I mean, I've built up a number of really close relationships with the students that I've had, and it's been lovely trying to make them into the great students they're going to be. My current tutor group I've had for like 5 years. They're in year 11 now. I've had them since year 7. I'm not looking forward to when they leave. That is going to be a very sad moment for me. I can feel myself welling up now. It's amazing that the relationships that you build up with these kids, it's almost like they're your own. So that's the first thing that's kept me in teaching. And the one thing that I literally will keep me in teaching for the rest of my career is the kids. Because yes, I'm going to talk about behaviour. Of course I am. And of course there are children whose behaviour really annoys me. But 99% of the children that I've taught, and 99% of the children that I see on a regular basis over the course of 21 years have been amazing. And if even the behaviour kids, if you delve down deep enough, if you talk to them, if you start to build a relationship, you get to find out some of the reasons why they misbehave. And that's kind of the great thing about building those relationships with kids. It's one of those really special bonds that that a kid will literally physically one day be, Mr. Mackay, this has happened to me. Then they'll start, telling you loads of stuff, or something that has happened, like their dog has died, and then you have to sit there and, listen to them and let them talk to you and let them cry a little bit if they need to. And it's a lovely feeling knowing that you are there for them and that you can always be there for them. And I love it. I think that's one of the greatest things in teaching ever. But obviously, there's the staff as well. And that would be my next thing, is staff. The other, at our school, Wigston Academy, I mean, we work hard. We work incredibly hard, and SLT pushes because they want the best for the kids. They want the best for us. And I think that the relationship we have with the staff is one of the greatest things about working at the school that I work with, is because it's like a little family. I hear when I talk to other schools, when you have like cliques, the English department don't talk to the maths department, that don't talk to the ADT department, they don't talk to the science department. I've never experienced that in teaching. It's something that I've never seen, never heard, because literally everyone talks to everyone in our school, and everyone is friendly, and everyone is kind of has a good laugh with them, and it's great to be able to sit there and talk to these people and have a bit of a rant about the kids, and then come up with some solutions to some of the things that you're actually doing. It's just great. It's just absolutely amazing to have so many brilliant people around you all of the time. I mean, I'm very lucky in the fact that it's not just the teachers at our place. Our SLT are also kind of people that will always talk to you and ask you how you are and come in. And I think that's one of the things that is wrong with some senior leaders, is the fact that most teachers, when they are sitting down and they're talking about, I don't know, the policies that they like or dislike, I don't know, they turn around and say, SLT this and SLT that. And I think one of the things that I think an SLT can do, that senior leaders can do in order to kind of stop that, is to be seen. People senior leaders that are seen, that you speak to, that you know by name, that you say good morning to, become human. They become people, and you see them as people, and you see the fact that they hurt like the rest of us, and that, yes, they may have a thick skin, but they also are people, human beings, and so therefore you generally tend to kind of don't. You think you see them working, and so therefore you don't react to that. You just kind of see them and you say, yeah, they work incredibly hard. And I think some of the ones that kind of spend a lot of time in offices need to come out of their offices more, and perhaps, see people, talk to people, and then you don't get dehumanized. Because I think SLT and teachers, everyone in a school has an incredibly hard job, and I think senior leaders are vilified a lot of times when they don't need to be. Lots of the times you get teachers that moan all the time, and it's like, go and talk to senior leaders. They're open, their door's open. If they tell you that their door is open all the time and they are ready to talk to you, then go and talk to them. Because if they don't know that there's a problem, there's nothing that they can do about it. And I think that that's one of the great things about the senior leadership at our place. Yes, they have their faults. I think all kind of the kind of higher level managers, whether you're in schools and whether you're not in school, whether you're in a company, the kind of the higher ups are always seen as people that don't understand what's actually happening on the ground floor. And yes, to a certain extent they don't, but we also have to realize that their job is just as hard as ours. They are in the end ultimately responsible for everything that happens. The other thing that I love about the job that's kept me in for the last kind of 21 years is the fact that every day is different. There is nothing, I don't think I've ever had a single day where I've had the same things happen. And it just makes it such an interesting profession to be in. It makes it such an amazing and kind of quality place, because you go into a class, you don't know what you're going to expect. You have something new to teach them, and you have something new to learn from them. You find new behaviour techniques. You find kids that have misbehaved for the last 3 years have suddenly decided they don't want to misbehave anymore, or someone that's never misbehaved in their life suddenly has an angry shout at you, and then you have to think about what you've got to do. It's that kind of unpredictability, that sense that nothing is ever the same, is something that will always make it great. Typical week, you could walk in and you do your regular thing. You sit and you start getting all your printouts ready for the day, or you set up all of your stuff that you're going to do, and then someone will come in that doesn't normally come in at the time that you're in, and they'll talk to you. Or it could be something like you got up late, and then when you go in and find that someone's printed the stuff off for you that you're supposed to do, because your whole department's absolutely amazing. Nothing's ever the same. You go in and the kids might not be great in behaviour, and they might be playing off each other, and it might be a really stressful day, or it might be a day where the kids have all decided they really like you today, or they really want to learn. Whatever it is, it's always different. There is nothing stays the same. It doesn't matter whether you are walking across from one corridor, one building to the next building, and you see someone that you've never seen before, and a child says hello to you, or a child you've never ever taught and never ever seen says, "Good morning, Mr. Mackay." And you say good morning back, and then you stop and you have a conversation with them for a couple of minutes because you have no idea who they are. Those are the sorts of things that really make teaching grand. But obviously, there are lots more.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR 2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncatbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
Introducing Eton X from Eton College, a diverse range of quality online courses enabling young people to aspire and excel. Designed for self-study, these web-based courses empower your students with essential leadership, communication, and academic skills for success at school and beyond. Our Study Skills course sharpens their learning abilities, while the AI Fundamentals course equips them with vital digital know-how in a fast-changing world. Other popular courses include verbal communication, critical thinking, writing skills, resilience, creative problem solving, and many more. Offer the Eton X curriculum in your school for free. Visit etonx.com to find out more.
And welcome back to Teachers Talk Radio with a teacher talking, which is with me, Sean Mackay, talking to you about what's kept me in teaching for the last 21 years. So far I've already gone through the fact kids and kind of building relationships with those kids and staff, and how staff are absolutely amazing, especially if you've got ones that, you know, all of the staff members are kind of talking to all the other departments, and you make lots of friends. I've also talked about things that are never the same, that things are always different in a school. And it doesn't just have to be teaching. It can be the fact that maybe this year you decided to try a new book, and you've got to then teach it from scratch, and therefore you've got to try it out on kids, and you've got to learn that book as well. And it's hard sometimes, you know, you get pushed all the time. There are long hours in this job. It isn't a job that you have to take lightly, but it's those new things, like the new teachers that turn up, the new teachers that we have, the new students that come through, refugees, for instance, are another thing that we've had an amazing experience with, kind of seeing these kids that are coming across, and then having to help them not only learn the language, but also kind of create that sense of giving them a sense of well-being, making sure that they're not frightened or scared. Then we have kids that have been in there all their life, and you can see how amazingly intelligent they are, and you see that love for learning. And then there's times when you see kids that don't like school at all, and then that kind of turns around. There are lots of things in terms of building relationships, in terms of seeing something new every day. Kids that, when you get the information through from primary school, when they come up to secondary school and say that they are, a very angry person, and then when you talk to them on the initial meeting, when they're coming to meet the parents and meeting you for the first time, and the first thing that child says is, "I was really angry at school and I want to change." And you watch them over the course of a number of years becoming such an amazing kid. It's just so proud of some of the kids that I've taught over the years, and some of the tutor group kids in my tutor groups that I've had. And that kind of, it keeps you in the game. So I've done kind of quite a lot of what I like. Excuse me for drinking. But now I'm going to go through some of the things I dislike. Let's mix it up a little bit. We don't want to keep everything in terms of the good stuff. Like every job, there is things that I also don't like about the job. They're not big enough to make me leave, but they're certainly things. So I said one of the things that I love is the kids, and one of the things that I don't really like sometimes are the kids. They can be a double-edged sword, and it's not that I don't like the kids, it's I don't like their behaviour. There's been I've talked and seen a lot of stuff over the recent times, especially over the last month, which has kind of come up again, where it's talking about kind of the traditionalist approach against the the progressive approach. And you've got people in one corner saying, these kids need to be punished, they need to be taken to to the exclusion room, or they need to be excluded, or they need to have sanctions, or they need to have this. And then you have the other ones that said you need to kind of look at positive reinforcement, and you need to look at praise, and you need to look at this, that, and the other. And you see the factions on kind of Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, kind of fighting it out. And sometimes it can become really nasty, and I can't understand why, because personally I think that the answer lies, as always, somewhere in the middle. Yes, you have to build relationships, and but you also have to, you do have to have consequences for the things that they do wrong, but you also have to find out kind of why they're doing it wrong. You have to look at the whole kind of picture. You need to start to think about how why that child is playing up. And it could be something as simple as they have no clue what you're talking about and don't know what to do. There are absolutely children that just simply do not want to learn. But most of them, of the behaviour issues, the worst behaviour issues, are the children that have been spoiled by their parents. And that isn't the child's fault. That's the parents' fault. That's, the way you bring your child up is the way they act. And I've met a lot of parents over the years. 99% say the children those parents are amazing and they want the best for their children. And even the 1% that I've of parents that I've had kind of problems with over the past still want the best for their children. It's just they refuse to believe that their child can do anything wrong. And those are the children that tend to be the ones that are the worst behaviour issues. And I'm not saying, as a parent, you shouldn't be pushy. Of course you should. That's the way you get things done. But it's also, you have to remember that teachers are not going to deliberately target your child. If they turn around and say that they misbehaved and they did something, or they said something, or they were rude, or they were whatever they've done, normally that's probably what's happened. And as much as you try to turn around and say, no, it didn't, you weren't there, and they were. And sometimes you have to kind of put yourself in that position and say, a teacher's not going to turn around and say this because they want to have a go at you. No teacher wants to spend half an hour of their own time at a detention sitting with a child that's been naughty. What they want to do is get them to learn. And it's one of the things that, as I said, is part of the things that I dislike about teaching, is the fact that sometimes parents don't see beyond the fact that that's their child and that they need to protect them. And as I said, that's absolutely fine. But that individual, that child, has got to go out from school at some point in time. They have to. And you have to equip them as a parent, as we try to do as teachers. You have to try to make sure that they are ready for the outside world. I mean, we try to do that in school. We try to give them an education so that they are not... what was the word I would say? That they are not falling into a deep hole of which they're not going to come out of, that they are not going to be suckered into a contract because they can't understand the terminology within the contract of a mobile phone and they're paying above the odds, that they understand when they are being kind of done over by an employer because they're not paying, or paying too much tax or too much national insurance, or not being paid enough. That's what we do. We try to give them the best possible methods and means to actually go out into that big wide world. And sometimes kind of parents, you need to understand that. And 99% of parents do. And I love them for it. But, behaviour is also one of the things that really I dislike in terms of behaviour is being ignored. It's one of my biggest bugbears of teaching. I would say that is maybe the biggest bugbear of teaching. It's kind of like I always walk along. We have, like most schools, we have a uniform, and the uniform policy is things like you have to have your shirt tucked in as you're walking around school. You've got to have your blazer on, and it's walking past a child and just saying to them, "Tuck your shirt in," and they just carry on walking and walk past you. So you turn back round and you walk back up to them and you say, "You need to tuck your shirt in," and they continue to walk. And then the next time you go up and you raise your voice a little bit and you say, "You need to tuck your shirt in." It's trivial stuff. But, being ignored is a massive bugbear of mine, and it's because it's rude. And it's one of the things that does my head in. And then you turn around to the child and say, I've asked you 3 times now to tuck your shirt in. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, you did. Of course you did. I'm not thick, and neither are you, and you're not deaf. So don't ignore me, because it's rude. And I hate the rudeness of people in it sometimes. And also the thing I also hate is the word why. In terms of kids, I love why in a classroom. I absolutely love why in a classroom. I want kids to say why all the time. When I turn around and say this is the meaning of this, when I'm doing my English lesson and the kid says why, great. You want to learn, you're curious, that you want to know something, and I will sit and I will explain it to death until you're bored of me explaining it and say, yeah, right, so get lost now. But when you turn around to a child when they're outside of the class and you say, you need to do this, and they look at you and go, why? It's like, because those are the rules. It's like we have a one-way system to make sure that people are safe in our school, because we have stairs that go up and then we've got stairs that go down. And then when kids are coming up the wrong way up the stairs, you tell them and say, you need to go back down because it's a one-way system. And they stand there and look at you as people are trying to push past them and say, why? And try to have an argument with you on the stairs. It's like, I'm not here to have an argument with you. I just want you to turn around and I want you to go back down, because that's what you should do. Do as you're told, do what I've asked you to do. Don't be rude. And I don't know whether this is true with the rest of you. I don't know whether people and the teachers that are going to listen to this have the same thing that I have, but I have noticed a drastic increase in children's attitudes and especially rudeness over the course since COVID anyway. Children have come back and have been much ruder, much more aggressive, much more volatile when it comes to doing as they're told. And it's just one of the dislikes. It's one of the bugbears of mine. It's one of the things that I think if I had to cite something that might kick me out of teaching, I think that would be it. Not having someone be rude to you and be quite violently and aggressively rude in the way that they talk to you. I mean, I've had students scream in my face. I've had students turn around and swear at me. I've had pupils take a swing at me, all manner of stuff. I mean, this is over 21 years. These are very rare occasions. These are very rare things that happen, but they do happen. They are things that kind of that make you wonder whether or not teaching's the profession that it used to be or whether it was. But I've certainly recently, especially since COVID, my dislike of rudeness and being ignored, it's just an attitude has just got worse. I think it's one of those absolutely huge thing, because if a child goes out after school, after they've finished school, and are as rude to people like police officers, and they're going to get into a lot of trouble. And though we try to teach them that this is the thing, but it is just a complete bugbear of mine. And I was talking to another one of my colleagues at school, and she was also saying that attitudes have gone down recently. And I don't know why. I mean, I've also noticed, taking it totally away from school, I've also noticed that people on the end of the phone, when you phone someone up, seem to be a lot ruder now, and a lot more aggressive when you phone them up to try to actually to talk to them about some of the products that you bought, or if you want to send something back, or if you are speaking to customer services about your phone line. They also seem to be much ruder than they used to be. So I don't know whether that's a trend going on. I know we've got people that are texting and are agreeing with that, but it just seems to be a lot worse at the moment. Everything is being questioned. Lots of children being rude, lots of children not doing as they're told. And I think it is off and on I'm sure it will get better, and I'm sure that this will pass, and that things will go kind of back to normal. I don't know, but what I do know is that the amount and number of kids that are rude, the number of kids that are being rude is increasing all the time. And I've got someone that texted in and said that they work in a school and they've also noticed a huge difference in people's attitudes. So it is that sense of, why do I have to do as you're told? Why do I have to do the things that you're asking me to do? And it's almost as if, and again, this is, it's all coming down to kind of, what happens at home and the way that they kind of talk to their parents sometimes, I think. And certainly they do come across as, it's not everyone, and it is a small minority. It still is a small minority. The rest of most of the kids are great, but it's growing, that sense of being disrespectful, that sense of the fact that I don't have to do as you're told. But that's one of the bugbears of mine, and that's one of the things that if I was going to say, it's if I was going to say that was going to push me out of a school, I'd say that was what it was going to be. So yes, parents have to take responsibility. We have to find out what we can do to help as a school. We have to make sure that we are doing things with the parents as well as with the kids to make that something of the past. So let's go back onto a different thing then. Let's talk about something else that is a dislike of mine in school. Now, this is just me, I think. I don't know, because I think I'm stuck in my ways. And I think a lot of teachers, when they get to the amount of years that I've been doing in school, which is like, as I said, 21 years, I don't like change. If it's one of the things I absolutely don't like, it's change. I know it has to happen. I know things have to move on. But kind of, I don't like it. It's not nice. When someone comes in with a new initiative and says, "Right, we're going to start this now," I'm like, "Why? Why do we have to do this? I don't want to do this. I want to stay teaching the way I've been always teaching." And or if people decide that this one's going to do this and this one's going to do that, I don't like the fact that people are making me do something I've never done before. I'm quite I'm quite happy in my safe space. Thank you very much. I quite like it, and I know we have to push boundaries. We have to push back against that, and I have to push back against that. It is one of those things that is absolutely the innovator is moving forward. Is getting yourself into the situations where you are testing yourself constantly, and I do like testing myself. But I like testing myself. I don't like other people turning around and saying, do this, do that, do the other, because I literally don't want to do it. I want to stay in my safe space. I want to carry on the way I've always been doing. But that's it. It changes, definitely one of the biggest bugbears, because people always have new ideas. And lots of the time when they do have these new ideas and they do have these new things for moving forward, personally, I can't see the point in them. They tend to be things that, as a teacher of 21 years, I've seen come and go. I've seen fads come and go. I've seen quangos come and go. I've seen so many things that have not worked. And then someone comes in, calls the same thing that didn't work something different, and then they think that it's going to work this time. And it's like, okay, I will just manipulate what they've asked me to do to suit my style, to suit me. And yes, I agree. We've got one text and they say sometimes just ticking another box. It is, and sometimes you do. It is a tick boxing exercise, and you do have to jump through hoops as a teacher. I think definitely it's one of those things that you're never going to get out of. I think even outside of school. So let's move on from change then and go back to one of the other. Let's go back to one more thing that I dislike before I move on back onto the things that I love about teaching again. So pointless stuff. I don't get pointless stuff. when they, like, we have a uniform policy, and most schools have a uniform policy. And one of the things they have to do is they have to wear a blazer. And, I get that we're trying to get discipline and we're trying to get people looking the same. But for me, it's pointless. Having a uniform doesn't impact education. It doesn't impact their learning. Why do we insist on making them wear it? Other pointless stuff. Reports. Most teachers, most parents don't read reports. I think it's just something that's there so that senior leaders can look at it and say, yeah, these children are progressing or they're not. But I got my daughter's report and I pretty much went, yeah, thanks. As long as I knew that she was working, because I saw her at home working, I didn't really need to know whether she was a level 2 in art or a level 4 in French. I didn't need to know that. I was just quite happy the fact that she was getting on with it. I went to parents' evenings and found out that she was doing really well and that she was clever and that she was doing everything. So, report writing, a bit pointless. Other things that you have to do, box filling, ticking boxes, that sort of stuff. At doing gear checks, making sure that people have got this, that, or the other, going into a CPD session and doing paperwork, filling in a form because this parent wants some information about this. It's all pointless stuff. And one of the most precious things that a teacher has or doesn't have is time. We don't have any time at all. So getting us to do pointless I can't say these words. This is ridiculous. Tick boxing exercise is, again, another pointless and futile venture. Making sure, like with marking tick, flick and tick, what's the point in that? I don't see it. The kids don't care whether you've ticked their book or not. They care about the fact that when they've written a big piece that you've marked it and that you've given them feedback and they want to know what grade it is. You can write loads of feedback, but the first thing is they always look at is the grade. So sometimes I wonder whether feedback is worth it as well, but I know that it is. So therefore, that is another thing that kind of, I don't like, pointless things that you have to do. Sometimes, and I'm trying to think of the one that we've done recently. There are some great things that we do, but the pointless stuff, the unnecessary admin that we have to do, the unnecessary going through, reading stuff out to kids, making sure that whether you've got a PowerPoint for tutor time that doesn't have any point. Everyone has to be read this out, even though it doesn't really apply to this year group or that year group. Just pointless stuff that takes up teachers' time that you don't really need to do. And I think that's one of the things that kind of knocks me a little bit. And again, one of those things that I dislike about teaching, but, we all have to do tick. Oh, fuck, I really can't get those words tonight. What is wrong with me? Tick boxing exercises. And I just think that we should kind of knock that sort of stuff on the head so that we don't have to. And that way it would make teachers' life a lot easier. And I'm just going to mention one other, not having paper next to the photocopier. What is it with that? Why do you not have a stack of paper that teachers can literally just pick up and use the photocopy? It's one of my bugbears. It's kind of like is sticking your printing in, trying to get it all ready for that day and finding out there's no paper. What an absolute senseless waste of time walking around trying to find a ream of paper so that you can get all your stuff set out for that particular day. If you just have someone stick it there, put 7 boxes worth of paper there so that we're never going to run out, because that way my precious time is not going to be spent walking around trying to find somewhere that has got some paper so that I can print my work off. That's just a really tiny one, but it's something that bugs me. We'll be back after the news.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The mother of murdered schoolgirl Brianna Jai has spoken about the need for positive change and a lasting legacy for her daughter. Mrs. Jai visited Westminster as part of her campaign for mindfulness to be taught in all schools in England. She commented on her Peace and Mind UK Facebook page that her focus would be to improve lives by empowering people, giving them the tools to build mental resilience, empathy and self-compassion through mindfulness. She went on to say that she hoped to create more understanding for everyone. Mrs. Jai has already raised thousands of pounds to deliver mindfulness training in schools in her local area. The Department for Education has said there were no plans to introduce mindfulness, but the RSHE curriculum included a strong focus on mental health, and that all schools had been offered grants to train a senior mental health lead by 2025. Mrs. Jai has also spoken about the idea for a phone for under 16s, to limit access to social media apps. The Children's Commissioner, Dame Rachel de Souza, told the BBC that she supported the ideas and said more could be done to promote phones that are safe by design. She described Mrs. Jai's vision as really smart, but questioned whether the likes of Google and Apple would create phones with access that is safe by design. PM Rishi Sunak has stated that the new Online Safety Act is robust, but parents told the BBC how difficult it is to take away a smartphone from a child who already has one, whilst others described the pressure from social media as relentless. In Wales, the cap on university tuition fees is rising from £9,000 to £9,250 a year from September. Education Minister Jeremy Miles says he recognises students will be disappointed. A report on the BBC News website says loans will also go up to cover the 2.8% increase, which will affect undergraduate students studying in Wales whose home address is in Wales. Those with a home address in Wales but who study in other parts of the UK are unaffected because they already pay the £9,250 for their studies. Mr Miles blamed sustained inflationary pressure on higher education providers in Wales and that the increase was unavoidable, but would help to safeguard provision and investment. The Guardian reported on school finances with an article on findings that almost half of multi-academy trusts in England were in deficit last year. The report by the accountancy network Creston UK was based on studying the accounts of 279 trusts, representing over 2,300 schools. It found 47% were running in-year deficits. Rising energy bills and staffing costs were blamed by many and made worse by uncertainty around income streams. School leaders say that schools are constantly asked to do more with less. Last October, the Department for Education in England admitted to making a £370 million error, meaning mainstream primary and secondary schools will be given at least £50 less for each pupil than original forecasting predicted. This forced school leaders to redraw their budgets for 2024 to 25. With energy costs still high and a recruitment and retention crisis leading to an increased use of agency staff, mean that many school leaders are facing further pressure on budgets and many expect a deficit trend to continue. More than 100 school buildings containing dangerous concrete will be rebuilt or refurbished, according to a report on the BBC. The government says all affected schools will receive funding to permanently remove the dangerous concrete known as RAC. Unions say the announcement includes no new money. The 234 schools affected in England have reportedly returned to face-to-face learning, but many children are still being taught in marquees, portable classrooms, or in other off-site locations. Some pupils have not been able to access specialist classrooms for design and technology, as well as science labs and other specialist spaces. The government has been criticised for not making changes to exams for those affected. Finally, a jury in the United States of America has held the mother of a 15-year-old mass shooter criminally responsible for the death of 4 high school students in 2021. The 15-year-old himself was sentenced to life without parole in December, but at the start of February, the male's mother was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. the first time a parent has been convicted of such charges due to their child's role in a mass shooting. The case has raised questions about the accountability of parents. Although the youth's parents had gifted him the weapon days before the attack. Prosecutors also argued that parents had not paid enough attention to their son's declining mental health. US law generally only holds individuals responsible for their own actions, but this case appears to present some change. The schools where the shooting took place has also faced criticism for not acting swiftly when drawings of guns were found on the mail earlier in the day of the shooting. Whatever the outcome of the sentencing, the case appears to be reinvigorating debate around the issue of parental responsibility, alongside individual culpability. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
And welcome back to Teachers Talk Radio with me, Sean Mackay, talking about everything that's kept me in this job for the last 21 years. All the things that I've talked about today have been absolutely about kids, about relationships with students and staff, about never being the same, teaching, watching kids grow up, learning all the time. I've talked about behaviour and rudeness and how that can change and pointless stuff. All of these things are what's kept me going and things that have been a bugbear for me over the past 20 years. So, let's move on then. One of the things I want to talk about is the news that we've just kind of looked at. And one of the things they talked about was something that is also a little bit of a bugbear of mine is kind of homophobic language. There are lots of times that is a real bugbear of mine that schools take really seriously racist remarks and racist comments and anything like that. But they still allow, or still lots of teachers don't take into consideration where kids turn around and say, oh, that's so gay, that it's a homophobic remark. And that's one of the things that was on the news with the Rihanna Gray thing. And the other one is kind of that was talked about on the news with mobile phones. It's another bugbear of mine. It's one of the things that we have. Our kind of policy at our school is that, you know, as long as they're hidden and away, you can have them on you. It's up to you. But if we see them, we take them off of you, which I think is a really good policy to have. The only problem is trying to get them off of children, I suppose. And again, that's another one of my kind of bugbears about teaching. It's one of the things that has really annoyed me over the course of a few years, watching the rise of mobile phones, the number of mobile phones in school, the number of smartphones that you have, and smart watches as well. And now you get kind of, we've had, you know, lots of incidents around the country with teachers being filmed, teachers being recorded, which is absolutely, definitely not something that we should be doing. And it should be something where mobile phones should be banned, to be fair. I mean, either use them or don't. Either say they're banned or let class teachers use them. But you know, that's my thing. The other things that were on the news, which I thought I'd quickly talk about, was that RAC situation. Thankfully, we don't have a problem with RAC in our school, but it must be such a horrible thing to have all of these teaching areas kind of walled off and taken off and not allowed to teach in them at those points. It's a horrible thing to have to move so many children into different places, to have these mobile units that have to come in to kind of replace real classrooms, which is not only horrible for the staff, but it's awful for the kids and the children's learning, which I don't think is a great thing in itself. So back onto the great things about teaching. So we've talked about some of the negative things. Let's go back onto the things that I love. One of the things I love and that's kept me in this job is the teaching itself. I mean, as I said, I'm a literacy coordinator, so I have additional responsibilities, which I absolutely thoroughly love. But teaching is some of the greatest moments I've had in teaching is through being in that classroom. It's the other day, for instance, I had a child in my class and we were talking about one of the novels that we were studying. And we were looking, I think it was Macbeth, and we were looking at over Act 1, Scene 7, and I said, you know, it does this and it's doing this, and this is what Lady Macbeth is doing. And a child, one of my year 9s, simply came up with, and to be fair, I wrote it down so I didn't have to remember it, and I don't remember it, but I do remember thinking, wow, I've never thought of it like that before. And then for the next literally 10 minutes, my teacher plan went out of the window, and it kind of, the whole thing was then centered around that one thing that the student had said. And as a class, we all started debating it and talking about whether or not what I'd initially said about that particular one, or whether it was this other one. And then we ended up with a discussion about, this is why there's no right or wrong answer in English, because simply they're you, as long as you can understand why you said it and you can explain why you think that, that is, you're going to get marks for it. You're going to have an adequate answer. Your inferences are absolutely fine. You're going to be marked up for that. And I think that was one of the greatest things that came out of that particular lesson, is them really kind of understanding that there really is no right or wrong answer. If you can debate it, if you can talk about it, if you can start thinking about some of the things that are within that kind of that language which is being used. And that's the kind of greatest thing about teaching, and especially teaching English, is that you can teach a book and teach a book and teach a book and teach a book until the cows come home. And then it only takes one child with this kind of revolutionary statements that suddenly changes your whole perception, and it changes the whole course of that lesson as well, actually. So yeah, teaching is absolutely one of the greatest things, because sometimes as you move up the kind of professional ladder, I suppose, you can get bogged down with all of the admin tasks, which are so kind of pointless sometimes, but that have to be done. But teaching itself, being in front of those kids, getting those things, and I suppose linked to that, the other thing that I really love, they're rare, but they do happen, is kind of like the eureka moments. Those, I suppose those are the same ones that I've just talked about a second ago, but the moment where you are talking about something and then suddenly the kid's face lights up and they go, I get it. And then they start working incredibly hard for it. And then the next lesson, they're kind of much harder working because they've something has clicked inside of them and they realize that actually they can do this. And just seeing that kind of, that look on their face, that sense of, I've done something and I'm really proud of it. And you as a teacher are really proud of it as well. Just is incredibly empowering. And also those lessons where everything you plan, when you are a teacher, and if you are a teacher, you'll know this, 99% of the stuff that you do goes off on tangents, and everything that you plan, you might have to go over something. A misconception might draw you back to a point you talked about earlier, so therefore you have to stop whatever you're doing and go back to that. Sometimes a kid asks a pertinent question, you have to stop at that point, so you never get through the lesson or all the learning because of the amount of different things that you're going through. But occasionally, just occasionally, you get one of those lessons where everything goes right, all the timings fit in perfectly, all the kids got everything that I've asked them to do. When you do your final task, your exit ticket task, everyone answers all of the questions that you've got for them, everyone remembers the stuff that you've taught them, and you go off and you think, this is why I'm a teacher. And you absolutely love everything that you've got to do, and you love the things that's happening in that class right then. Not that I don't love it all the time, I do. And there are some classes that are much more challenging, but I like challenging classes. I like watching kind of kids grow all the time. And that's one of the things that I think I love and has kept me in the job for 21 years, is that sense of that we learn all the time. It doesn't matter whether it's during professional development, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's walking around. You are constantly learning, whether it's something about the kids, or it's something about the subject that you teach, or it's something about one of your staff. There is always something new to learn. You might try a new behavior technique and it works, you might try a different teaching technique, or just tweak something and it works, or it doesn't work. It is just one of those amazing things that you are constantly, your brain's on the go all the time and you're learning all the time. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about teaching. And we'll be back right after this.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
Introducing Eton X from Eton College, a diverse range of quality online courses enabling young people to aspire and excel. Designed for self-study, these web-based courses empower your students with essential leadership, communication, and academic skills for success at school and beyond. Our Study Skills course sharpens their learning abilities, while the AI Fundamentals course equips them with vital digital know-how in a fast-changing world. Other popular courses include verbal communication, critical thinking, writing skills, resilience, creative problem solving, and many more. Offer the Eton X curriculum in your school for free. Visit etonx.com to find out more.
And welcome back to the last part of Teachers Talk Radio with Late Late Show with Sean Mackay. We're talking about all of the things that have kept me in and that bug me a little bit in terms of teaching over the last 21 years. So, let's go back then to some of the things that have kind of annoyed me or do annoy me, still annoy me over the course of my teaching career. And I think one of them is, and although I know we have to do this, but one of the things I dislike about teaching absolutely totally is marking. I hate it with a passion. Simply because it's incredibly boring. It's insightful. You find out lots about your kids when you mark books, but it's boring and it's repetitive and it's time consuming. My God, it's time consuming. You're sitting there and you're marking. I suppose as an English teacher, it's one of the kind of hardest things to do. Because you're looking at so many things. You're looking at spelling, you're correcting punctuation, you're correcting grammar, you're correcting content, and you're trying to find so many things that you've got to look for. And as much as I try to speed mark, which a lot of my colleagues are great at, I can't do it. I write loads. I can't stop myself. I want the kids to learn something from it. So it takes me a long time to mark a set of stuff. At the minute, I have 4 GCSE classes, which means my mark load is incredibly high. And it's marking stuff is incredibly boring. It's kind of like one of those things that you really enjoy when you first start doing, because you feel like a real teacher, but then gradually the kind of routine steps in and you realize that marking is possibly the most onerous task on the face of the earth. And so marking, it would be one of the things, if I could get rid of marking and still be able to give them some feedback, I would do, because I hate having to sit and do all that marking, but I understand why we do it. I suppose let's have a look. The other thing that I really don't like are break duties and duties in general. The thing that really gets me, and this is kind of this is a phenomenon known to everyone, I think, that has a break, is that when you come downstairs and you go into the staff room and you sit down, when you don't have a break, what happens is as soon as your bottom touches that seat, the bell goes, and suddenly you have to go back up again and start teaching. If you are on a break duty, however, you go onto that break duty, you could do your year's worth of marking, you could do all of the planning for a year, you could do an assessment, you could write a book, because literally it seems to last forever. It just keeps going, and nothing that you do will make that clock speed up. No, obviously I know that it doesn't. 15 minutes or 20 minutes takes 20 minutes, but it just seems incredibly long. And if I could get rid of my break duties, or if I could increase my non-break duties to about 3 hours, I'd love it. And I think it was absolutely great. But I'm not going to finish off on negatives. I'm not going to finish my last remarks in terms of negatives. I'm going to go back and finish on those positive moments. So a couple of things left then that I really, really enjoy that's kept me in this job. The first thing, And the most obvious thing that has kept me in this job, the holidays. We do get a lot of holidays, and I think lots of people believe that we have too much holidays. Generally, what I tend to do is I tend to, for any time we have a half term where we have 1 week, which we're just starting at the moment, we tend to have, what do we tend to have? We tend to have finish up all the marking that I've got to do, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing this week, is finishing off the year 10 marking for the PPEs that they've just finished. But then on the 2 week ones and the summer holidays, you actually get a chance to relax a little bit, and I think it's kind of, at least I get some time off. But because I'm working a lot, because I'm working about 12 hours a day, maybe not all the time on teaching and all the time on work, but I'm certainly up from 5 and I don't go to bed until about 11, 11:30. So I do have an incredibly long day. So I'm quite tired by the end of it. But it's simply, the holidays give you that break. It gives you enough chance away from the kids to finish off marking, to get marking back again, to make something, all of those things. You know, it's kind of, it just helps you to catch up. And that's what holidays mostly seem to be about. I mean, even in some holidays, you spend the first week finishing off any bits and pieces that you got to do. Then you probably have about 3 weeks off where you can just relax. And then for the last 2 weeks before you come back, you are preparing and you're planning and you're thinking about what you're going to do for the new academic year and everything that you can do to make it better. But the holidays are amazing because you do have that time to catch up, because you do have that chance to really kind of make sure that everything's up to date, that you're organised again. And I really like that, especially about the holidays. And the kind of last thing, the thing I'm going to kind of sum up with about what I like and what I love about teaching is the fact that it's a job I just find incredibly exciting. It's just, well, everything I've talked about tonight, from the kids, the relationships with the students, the relationships with the staff, the fact that nothing's ever the same, the teaching, watching kids growing up and be blooming into these amazing young adults, the fact that you learn all the time, the eureka moments, the holidays. And yes, there are some things that narc me, like, you know, the behaviour and the rudeness, the marking, the pointless stuff, the change that we have to do sometimes. But it is the most amazing job. And yes, it is the most rewarding job you can ever do, I think, personally. And that's why I've been doing it for 20 years, or 21 years, technically 22 if you count my other one. But I've been doing teaching for a long time, and I intend to do it for another maybe 19 years. That's how much I've got left. Oh God, that's just saying it out loud is horrible. I've got about another 19 years to go, but I don't care because I love it. I love teaching. I love the kids. I love everything about it. And it's, as long as that continues to happen, I will love being in this. And yes, someone said, especially when you get that one kid that's found everything challenging and then you get that breakthrough. Absolutely. It's those moments, those little cherishing things that I have kept with me throughout my teaching career. And hopefully you've found this slightly interesting. Perhaps you may have agreed with some of the things or disagreed with some of the things I've said, but, you know, fantastic. I'm glad I hope if you don't know this, that you're kind of nodding sometimes and maybe shouting at the radio a little bit as well. But thank you ever so much for joining me tonight. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking to an author, so we'll put that on soon. And I'm going to talk about writing and how to do creative writing. But it's goodbye from me for another fantastic session. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.